Welcome again to the TOEFL instructional program. In the last session, we discussed the first section of TOEFL, Listening Comprehension, which tests your understanding of spoken English. The questions in that session are based on situations such as conversations or lectures, similar to those you might hear in an academic setting in North America. In this session, we'll talk about the second section of the TOEFL test, structure and written expression. There are two parts in this section, and the questions in each part are designed to measure your ability to recognize language that is appropriate for standard written American English. During the first part of this session, we will discuss only structure. The written expression part will be discussed later. Before we begin to review some structure questions, let's talk a little about structure, what it is, and how it is tested in a TOEFL test.
As you may know, structure is really another word for grammar, which is a system of rules for the use of language. Remember, however, the TOEFL test does not ask you to explain these rules. Rather, the structure part of the test measures how well you can recognize and use features of English grammar.
If you know how words and groups of words combine to express meaning in English, you will probably do well on this part of TOEFL.
The structure questions in your TOEFL exercise booklet and in an actual TOEFL test are single sentences with one or more words that are omitted or left out. To answer a question, you must select the best choice that would give you a complete grammatical sentence.
You should remember, however, that the structure questions in your exercise booklet and in a TOEFL test are only selections from a large number of possible questions that test many kinds of grammar points. This means that if you take the TOEFL test more than once, you will more than likely find different combinations of grammar points being tested each time. As we review the questions you answered earlier and discuss the grammar points they contain, it will be necessary to use some basic grammar terms to describe features or elements of English. A basic element or feature of the English language is the sentence. A complete sentence always contains a subject and a verb, and it expresses a complete thought. Let's look at an example.
The students are going to the bookstore. This is a complete sentence. It has a subject, the students, and a verb, are going. To the bookstore is a combination of words that tell us where the students are going. To the bookstore is a phrase. Phrases help to give a complete message to the listener or reader, but a phrase all by itself is not a complete sentence because a phrase does not contain a subject and a verb.
Now let's talk more about sentences. Sometimes English sentences are long, and they can have more than one part. A part of a sentence that has a subject and a verb is called a clause. If a clause can stand alone as a sentence, it is called an independent clause. For example,
the students went to the bookstore and they bought books for their classes. This sentence has two independent clauses connected by the word and. An independent clause, like a complete sentence, has a subject and a verb and expresses a complete thought. Each of these independent clauses could be said or written alone as complete sentences. Let's look. The students are going to the bookstore. They bought books for their classes.